Welcome to tonight's Morgan Political Club's first ever Gubernatorial Forum. This is Sarah Aletta, and I'm Calvin Jackson. We'll be moderating tonight's event. Other students that volunteer tonight include Chelsea Picarillo, Daniel Radka, Jack O'Sullivan, Garrett Johnson, JP Nye. We'll begin tonight by introducing our guests and giving a brief overview of how the next 90 minutes will go.
Unlike other forums you might have attended, tonight will most definitely be a unique experience. Each candidate will be afforded only 12 minutes of speaking to use as he or she sees fit. This means if a question is asked in which one candidate feels great passion for, that candidate may wish to invest a fair amount of time into that question. If a question arises that seems less relevant, then the candidate may defer to the others. With 6 candidates, we will need to be cognizant of who raises their hand, and we will surely try to do our very best.
You will also be asked to participate. You've been given a score sheet and a collection of cards. If you hear a candidate say something that you agree with, please raise your green card. The same goes for a comment that may upset you or that you disagree with, where you will then raise your red card. Of course, as a reminder, be respectful to these folks who have offered in some way to expose themselves with you, with your ongoing input.
We will conclude the night after the forum by collecting the score sheets, inputting the data, and updating the event page on Facebook in the coming days. So please enjoy the evening and take credit for at least taking the time to engage in your civic duty. Voting still matters, and we intend to keep our democracy healthy and alive with these types of informal sessions. We will now begin before the questions by just running down the line of candidates quickly so that you can know their names.
My name is Peter Thalheim, and I'm running as Republican. I'm glad to be here this evening.
I'm Mark Stewart. I am a Libertarian and a Democrat seeking the nomination of both of those parties.
My name's Guy Smith. I'm a Democrat and I'm running for governor.
Hello everybody, I'm Jacey Wyatt. I am running for governor here in the state of Connecticut. I am a Democrat and I'm here to listen to you and let's get things done and fixed here in the state of Connecticut.
My name is Eric Mastroianni. I'm from New Haven. I am a Republican. And I accepted to come tonight because you young ladies and young men down here, and every one of you, is very important to me. We're all from Connecticut. We all need to come together to move forward to make this state a great state again that it once was and can be again. But I'd just like to say, no matter what title we hold, Democrat or Republican, we must come together with the vision to make it go forward, get past the party titles, and see what we can do to make it great again.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move right into the questions. So after reading the question, candidates can just raise their hand and we'll call on you. Question 1. Does the state of Connecticut have a spending problem, a revenue problem, or a combination of both? And please explain your answer.
Yes. Sorry about that. Yeah. Yes, my name is Peter Thalheim, and that is clearly, in my opinion, is a spending problem. Right now, we are in what I call a constitutional crisis. We are in a death spiral. We've seen 2 tax increases by Governor Malloy and the legislature, and people who make money and have money leave the state. And where does that leave us? That leaves us with less tax revenues at the end of the year. And the proposal to increase, at the present time, tolls, gas taxes, tire taxes is a fool's errand. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire. In fact, I have a blueprint to Save Connecticut. It's on my website. It's saveconnecticut.com. It has 6 points, 3 of which are based in the Constitution. And it all goes down to spending. We have lost our way. Our government is not run, as it is in our Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, that it is to be run for the benefit of the citizen. At present, there's been, we have $100 billion in unfunded pension liabilities around our neck. I have my piece of art over there that's a boa constrictor. The administrative state claims its victim. That state is dead. We cannot afford $100 billion in unfunded pension liabilities because if there are no people left, no business, there are no taxes. And so if you went to my site and saw my 6 points, one of the things is called going to average. And that means that we would pay our kind and well-meaning state employees at the 50 state average. We cannot afford to be the best. On the back of the sheet of the paper that you received, there's a study that shows our kind and well-meaning state employees earn 42% above the private sector. That is not good government. I will touch on some of these other issues later. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Guy.
Yes, this state has some fiscal issues. The state also has some enormous fiscal resources. As I said, I'm a Democrat. I believe in traditional democratic values. But as governor, I'm not going to raise taxes. And I'm not going to make unions and state workers and teachers the enemy. My Republican friends want to shut government down. They want to shut government down. We don't need to do that. What we need to do is come together and find new ways, third ways, to work together to solve the problems that we have. I don't think we need to raise taxes. I think we need to be more creative and more modern in the way we use the taxes that we collect. There's another thing, tolls. Tolls affect everybody. It's like the weather. Transportation is like the weather. There's no one that isn't affected by it. Here's the deal. There's this plan to put tolls on the highways. My Democratic competitors say that that will raise $800 million. And we need money for transportation. But it's $800 million of your dollars. We don't need to do it that way. What we need to do is put up tolls, but so that people from Massachusetts and New Jersey and Wyoming and wherever else driving through here are paying for the roads, because you already pay for the roads with the taxes you're already paying. These are the kinds of things that we need to do, and to address the fiscal issues that we have. We need to recruit people into the state. We need to stop the harm that's being caused from Washington to our state. Did you know that if a teacher buys a box of crayons for the kids in their class, before this tax scandal got passed in Washington, they could deduct the cost of this on their taxes as a business expense? The Republicans took that away. But if Pratt & Whitney wants to shut down its factory, it can deduct every dime. It's wrong. These same Republicans want to put an oil well out here in Long Island Sound. And not a single Republican office holder in the state of Connecticut, from Greenwich to Mystic, has said who. Why? You want an oil well out here in the Sound? This is the kind of governor I will be. We will put a stop to this. But we will bring new thinking into our state government. New, fresh, modern ideas. Anybody here got a driver's license? How was that experience at DMV? Today, thank you. Today, there's thumbprints, retina scans, biometrics. After you do that one time, when am I supposed to quit? Oh, okay. Think about the first time you go to the DMV, you give them a retina scan. And the next time, you don't like that. Okay. Then you can go stand in line at the DMV. But what I'm talking about is the modern way to do this. And then the next time when you have to certify that who you are, you do it with FaceTime. And your retina is red. And this young lady doesn't like this, but I don't know if she hadn't stood in the line down there at the DMV. But what we need to do broadly is bring in some fresh thinking and bring people back into Connecticut. People have been leaving. Folks like you go away to college and parents tell me all the time they won't come home. Well, we want to create an atmosphere where you will want to come home, where there will be an incentive to come, to create, we're going to create technology centers so that when you come home from school, if you've gone out of state, there are places to do your startups, just like at Route 128. You heard of the Oregon Forest out there in Oregon, where technology in Silicon Valley. Connecticut can do this, and it doesn't take lots of money. Think about it as you drive around the state. Lots of empty buildings, abandoned buildings. Many of them are owned by the state. Wire them, hook them up with their internet, and then when we recruit young people to come back into the state after college, it's a place to do their startup. We can do these things. We just have to think modern, think advanced, use technology that we have today, use modern thinking, use modern financial techniques. That's why we need to look at the way we run state government in a wholly different way, and not to impede people's progress, to expand people's progress, their ability to have a job, keep a job, raise a family. And when you do that, people are paying taxes, which generates revenue, which takes the pressure off of the fiscal challenges that the state has. Thank you.
Yeah, Jacey.
Hi, again, I'm Jacey Wyatt. I'm from Brantford. I'm running for governor in the state of Connecticut. I'm new to being a Democrat. And when I first got involved in this, from being locally involved in Brantford and seeing what is going wrong in our own little town, I got fired up, just like I'm fired up more to talk right now, because it's time to see in today's society, what are we doing to help the people, all age, seniors, young adults, middle class, rich. All of this in the state of Connecticut is a person that wants to know, how can we help you? And that's what this should be now in our state. The question is, do we have a spending problem in the state of Connecticut? Obviously. We can't figure out how to divide up $17.3 billion that we're collecting from the people in the state of Connecticut. When you look at things that we're spending in the state of Connecticut nowadays, we've just put $1 billion to the fast track in Hartford. Doesn't supply us down here. But it's a point where you start investing into the state to see how we can make revenue and make lives easier, how to get to work. But from last time when I looked at our numbers, Hartford's pretty empty. Those buildings don't have jobs. Those buildings aren't full of it's one of our competitors that we have inside the group right now, Luke Bronin, who isn't making Hartford work for the people. We gave him $40 million to get the Hartford books back in order. That's how Hartford's operating. $1.7 billion fringe benefits is paid out of that state capital. People are not embarrassed to bill our state for things that they have enough money to pay for themselves. And that's what's starting when I looked at this in the beginning, and I got a book like this thick of what we're spending in the state. I got more embarrassed of saying, why are we allowing this to keep happening in today? And when you look at this beautiful school, I think it was close to $90 million probably to build this building. This investment into education, children who are going to make our lives decisions, is something we do need to invest in. We do the half reimbursement in the state of Connecticut right now that you see, and you know what, that works. But we also pay $3.7 billion to welfare in the state of Connecticut. People need help, but why can't we do it for $2.2 billion? And today when I look at these numbers more and more, I bring out many things outside on our website, and we have a great video on our website. It's like 30 minutes long about who I am, where I've come, and where we can move the state. And I love the state of Connecticut. I've been involved to see many states in the United States, and I want to see how we can make Connecticut be better than any other. and how we can take tourism and development in the state of Connecticut to take the new revenues to balance what we can't do right now. It's the spending that we keep putting on programs. One of the ones that hits me home by living here is the Shoreline East. They want to cut services after we just built in this shoreline here. And it's wrong. We want people to look at what we can do to get them on the trains to utilize our beautiful towns and see the wonderful things that they can come and enjoy in our states, looking at cutting it. We need to reinvest and put better trains, better services, get people used to that. And to me, when I look at today, why aren't we doing it? It's a question that we gotta cut things because the state can't afford it. We can't afford it. We're putting it to $100 million we want to build the Excel Center over. We should sell the building and let a private developer own that building and let them market how we can do something in the state of Connecticut. And as I said, when we get fired up on things we pay and don't, we all have budgets. We all look at how we're paying per month. You make the $2,000, you spend the $1,800, you want $200 to feed yourself. In today's society, that is what needs to happen. And the state of Connecticut needs to realize this Republican budget, the Democrat budget, the governor budget, they can't work together. With me, very well. We're gonna make sure there's one great plan that we put in place with the people in this group that I've been dealing with for the last year. They have great ideas. They're the people behind us that we will help make the state move forward and make the better decisions, but we have to listen to you guys. And that's what's different from me being a Democrat and a new Democrat in the system. It's about you. This isn't about where I'm gonna end this. I could get us with a big plan of vision. That's who I am, but I also see where we can do this together.
Just quickly, before anybody else continues, I'd like to introduce the person who just came on stage. If you would just take a minute and introduce yourself.
Can you hear me? My name is Whitnum. I'm one of the candidates. I'm sorry I'm so late. It took me an hour to get from Greenwich to Norwalk. It was bumper to bumper traffic. Do you want me to talk about my candidacy or not yet?
Not yet. Just to reiterate for anybody who just walked in, all of the candidates have 12 minutes total speaking time. We are going to read questions and we will call on them and they can use their time as they see fit.
We're all going to start talking for a half hour. Where is the 12-minute warning line? Is there somebody that can tell us?
So the timekeepers.
There is somebody keeping track here?
Yeah.
So at the 3-minute period at the 3-minute mark, you have the orange. At 1 minute, we will show the red bar and bring our sign. Never do not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To be fair, let her have her moment to speak to the crowd.
Lee, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
My name is Lee Whitnum, and I am the harbinger of doom and gloom. I'm going to tell you things about your state that you're not going to want to hear. Our judicial system is the absolute worst in the country. We're ranked 48th, but really it's far worse. Why does this matter to you? Because where you meet your government is in your taxation and in your judicial system. I'd like to give you an example. Imagine if you're an elderly person and you find yourself in a hospital. You're sick. And your child, who is an adult, who has never ever come in contact with the unlawful state of Connecticut, is your conservator, of course. There are unscrupulous people in this state. Our probate system is a laughingstock of the country. First, they talk you into putting your mother into assisted living to get the house ready, because they know it's going to charge, they're going to charge you thousands and thousands of dollars a week. And then while you're there, they contrive a reason to knock your child, the adult child, the conservator, off your estate. And for the best interest of you, they put a lawyer in place. The lawyer's charging $800 an hour. Your poor child, who's never ever dealt with this unlawful system, is then fighting in a court of law to get their rights back. They make up contrived reasons or even criminally charge someone. And then the lawyer needs a lawyer for his best interest, watching out for your mom's best interest. And the lawyer for your mom's new conservator charges $600 an hour. Your mother says, get me out of this senior residence, I want to go home. And they say, oh, no, your conservator, who is a lawyer, says you can't. Flash forward 1 year, your child finally gets his role back as your conservator. And in the meantime, your assets have been completely bled. Oh, you're let out of the senior residence, but you have no home to go back to because the assisted living has attached your assets. Things like this happen all the time. I have 15 bills to clean up the state of Connecticut. I went from 0 to 53 without even a speeding ticket, and suddenly I found myself in the crosshairs of some very powerful people in the state of Connecticut. I found myself charged with a crime I did not do, and I was facing 14 years in jail for 9 criminal charges that I could prove via federal subpoena were made up. The people who targeted me are very powerful. And in the criminal court in Norwalk, my lawyers threw up their hands in despair, saying they'd never seen anything quite like this. And I was dragged into criminal court for 41 criminal court appearances.
Excuse me, Ms. Whitnum. We just wanted a little introduction, just as to who you were.
Oh, I'm not understanding the
It's
floor.
totally
I have 12
okay.
minutes.
So we have a selection of questions that we'll be going through.
Okay.
No worries.
Anyway,
And once we
the
ask,
long and short of it is this. In 5 years in the court system, I've learned a lot. And I have 15 bills to clean it up because our quality of life has been eroded in this state because of the graft, corruption, and the filth at the top. We have no checks and balances in this state. We must clean up the judiciary, take us from 1720 to 2020, and clean up this state. And I'm going to tell you how we're going to do it.
thank you very much. Now we're going to hear from Mr. Mastroianni regarding the first question.
Ladies and gentlemen, the high taxes, which is 10th in the nation, Connecticut, the mess that we're in is not a Democratic problem and is not a Republican problem. It's a state of Connecticut people problem. We all are residents of Connecticut. Like I said earlier, we must get past the titles of Republican and Democrat. We're people of Connecticut. I like to touch on tolls. I work as a supervisor for a construction supply corporation for 40 branches throughout the United States. I am a supervisor of their transportation division. New York gets $1 million a day for tolls. Now a lot of people said, okay, we put easy pass tolls, electronic tolls at our entry points only, not exiting, entry only. Rhode Island's governor last year said they were going to do it. They're doing it as we speak. Massachusetts went to easy pass tolls. We have a lot of traffic going through, including our own vehicles from my guys every day. 5 tractor trailers and 12 big trucks to vans. Now, by doing easy pass tolls, it will be the beginning to see how it goes. Now, I know everyone says we'll lose federal dollars, but we can work with them to get it done and ask if we could do it, and devise a plan and show them why we want to do it. Now, with that revenue, you take that revenue and you allocate it to the roads that is on for repairs. Half of us don't even travel on most of those roads, but yet we get taxed to fix them. The majority of the damage is from tractor trailers and other vehicles going from here to Maine, from here to Florida, where it passed through state. So that's something we should look at as a whole. Now, why are we in this situation? Because we elected the wrong officials. No one was held accountable for their actions for all the money that has been missing or mismanaged. No matter who gets in that office, and I wish luck to every single person here today. No hard ill against anyone. If I don't get it, I will support every single person behind me, because we all have the same goal, I hope and pray, is that we must put the youth right here, the next generation, above all. And what's the quality of a great leader? Is one that puts the needs of the people above their own. Now, I know a lot of people say you shouldn't mention what you were. I was a United States Navy Seabee, construction battalion equipment operator. I held some serious duties. And Mr. Peter was in the military also. He could vouch or debunk what I say. being in those positions, we have to put our men and women above all and their needs to make sure they're okay, provided for, and taken care of. Now, the youth right here is our greatest asset. Why? Because they're the leaders of tomorrow. They're the educators, the doctors, the lawyers, the butchers, the equipment operators, the welders. Education fund has run dry and going downhill. I say what we should do is stop buying books. We should get netbooks. And according to that class, go ahead and download the necessary curriculum on those netbooks for those classes. If the child is behind in that class, then they can take homework home. It'll cause some serious cost. Mismanagement up in Hartford with the vehicles, state vehicles. They shouldn't be taken home. Why? It's a liability. It's a liability. Only first responders should be the ones taking those vehicles home. My guys come in, they grab the gas card, which is regulated on how much they can use for that vehicle. They use it for official business, and then they take their own vehicle home. But nobody was ever held accountable for this mismanagement of the money that they received from the casinos, which was supposed to be for education, the lottery, and the money we got from big tobacco that a lot of people paid the very price with their life for. Just to be, they can't account for it, could they? So we need someone that's going to go in that office and hold people accountable for their actions. We must start at the top and work our way down. Playing with people's lives is over. I'm a father of 4. I live here. I love to call this state home. I brag about Connecticut all over the world where I've been. I'm proud to say I'm from Connecticut.
Almost 6 minutes.
So no matter who gets that office, that's the person you want in there. Is one, cannot promise you like they all do. I'm gonna do this and that. No, I'm gonna try my hardest to work with the legislators on both sides of the aisle to get things done so we can move forward. Small businesses has to be taken care of. That's the backbone of your society also. You have to lower taxes so they can flourish and grow. Our tax base and our biggest population for revenue has left by 20% and leaving by the droves. Amazon didn't come here for the world headquarters because of our transportation division is inadequate. Like Jacey said, the fast track. It's up there but not down here, and it's just going back and forth like the trolley on Mr. Rogers. We have to make these things, and the park, the ballpark in Hartford, that should have never been built. They should have left it in New Britain. That's a waste of people's money. That could have been for senior programs, education, medical, and all others that it could have been spent for. No one hardly goes. There's hardly no parking, and it's congested as it is. And also, we have to take a step back and realize, again, it's a Connecticut problem, not a Democratic.
Excuse me. We'd like to remind all candidates that they have 12 minutes for all of the questions. Okay. Thank you.
So again, let's keep that in mind as we go forward. Thank you.
Yes, if you'd like to speak.
So I'd like to respond to 2 of the things Eric said. One in agreement, one disagreement. When he brought up the netbooks, I do agree for a wide variety of learning. I'm one of the few Democrats who's for choice in schools. It gets better education for the kids as they need it. The thing I disagree with, I'm not a fan of tolling. I have a better way of raising revenue. I'm actually delivering that on March 16th in an address to people, hopefully media covering it from West Hartford. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.
Okay, now we will move on to the next question. What type of leader does Connecticut need at this moment? Explain your leadership style, how you would work with other state agencies, and how you might repair the seemingly severed relationship between the governor's office and the state legislature. Sure. Ed, you raise your hand and then we'll call on you. So if you'd like to go, Lee.
To be brief, there are no systems in place to get rid of bad state employees and bad judges. And so everybody blames the pensions and the unions on the reason why the state is in the toilet. That's not it. People are dying off, the baby boomers will eventually die off, and this big pension glut, the bigger promises, which we must keep, will eventually fade away. What needs to happen is systems to fire bad state employees and bad judges. By establishing systems and having the Judicial Review Council, which is now a useless appeasement organization that does nothing. Judges are rubber stamped in every 8 years. They send, the Judicial Review Council sends a recommendation. They have no teeth. They're an organization that has no teeth. By making them an organization rolling that can fire judges, 3 denials of due process sent in by the people to the JRC, and guess what? That judge is up for review hearing, and the Judicial Review Council can fire them. Same thing with state employees. You get a state employee. I filed a lawsuit against the state. I wanted $1, and for that person to be fired for not doing their job. $1. The state has 220 lawyers they sent against me. 5 lawyers on the other table against little old Lee Whitnum. What was I asking for? $1. Instead of the state saying, thank you very much for pointing out an employee who's not doing their job, who's obviously on the take here, instead of saying thank you, what they did was they lawyer up. That's wrong. We need systems to streamline our government.
Thank you, Lee. Quickly, before we go to Mr. Smith, I think Mr. Stewart, did you want to say something?
Yeah. You asked about what a governor should be doing. That governor should be forceful. And the only way one of us, or even one of the candidates not here, can be forceful with the legislature is to make this a very apparent race that we need a tremendous change. That this is a rollback. This isn't going to be compromising at the edges. Because when Democrats and Republicans in the General Assembly get together and compromise, they sell you out. They don't make big changes. That's why we have the problems that we've had. We've had Republican governors who are horrible. They did not hold the line of what Republicans are supposed to be about. Rel and Rowland and Weicker are the worst. Those 3 caused deficit after deficit, didn't plan. The next governor, and I hope to be that next governor, is going to be one who says, I will work with a legislature that has similar values. Values that you elected us to do, and watch. The minority then sit back and watch what a good governor and a responsible legislature can do for Connecticut.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Now we'll move on to Mr. Smith.
What kind of leader? I'm not a career politician, and I'm not a career candidate. Never run for public office. But over the arc of my career, helping run giant global corporations, a global humanitarian organization headquartered in Stanford, and at the highest levels of the United States government, at the White House, every day, what my job was to bring people together who have vastly different ideas. It is hard. It is very hard. What's happening in our state government now is not working. It is unconscionable that the governor of the state and the leadership of our legislature will not sit in the same room and not talk about the name of Killingworth Turnpike, but about the budget, about important things. That isn't the way our government was created. It's not the way it's designed. It's not what you expect of leaders. This is hard. I know how to do hard. Let me tell you a story. The end of the Gulf War I, last day, I was in a cargo plane with 100,000 pounds of medicine over Oromia, Iran. They came on the radio and said, if you come to our airspace, we will shoot you down. The medicines were for the Kurdish refugees that had fled Saddam Hussein into Iran. I'm on an airplane from the Great Satan. We land anyway. We got 100,000 pounds of medicines to the Kurdish refugees, and then had Ramadan dinner with 6 mullahs who a few hours earlier had threatened to shoot my airplane down. I know how to do hard. And that was hard. And as we were leaving, 3 captains in the Revolutionary Guard pleaded with me to let me, to take them home to the United States, to the Great Satan. I know hard. It is hard. And that's what you expect of leaders, is to do hard and to not do harm. You know, this stuff coming out of Washington about arming teachers with guns. They want to make schools safe for guns, not safe for students. It is wrong. And as governor of your state, I will work every day to prevent it. Keep the institutions safe so they can learn and not make Navy SEALs out of every teacher. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Tone, do you want to go?
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. Peter Thalheim. Like Mr. Smith, I'm not a professional politician. I've never held elective office. But like you, I'm very concerned with the physical condition of Connecticut, but I've also ran for government because I'm very concerned with political correctness and identity politics. Now I've designed a platform which you'll find at safeconnecticut.com, which is centered around, as you see the words, gratitude, common humanity, and liberty. My campaign is one of unity. Gratitude, if you went to the site and you clicked on it, you'll see a dialogue. Gratitude is to be grateful for every day that we have. Common humanity is that we're all brothers and sisters. In fact, 99.6% of our DNA is identical. Yet the identity politicians focus on the 0.4% that we can see, to divide us by race, creed, color, ethnicity, class, gender, sexual orientation. They are the 0.4%ers. Our common humanity, as brothers and sisters, is the antidote to the poison of identity politics. That is my campaign. If you see my sign, my name's at the bottom. This is not about me, this is about Connecticut. Gratitude, common humanity, and liberty. And what kind of a governor would I be? Well, I would be faithful to our Constitution. Again, Article 1, Section 2. Our Constitution was created for the benefit of the citizen. Instead, we've lost our way. We've lost our constitutional balance. For example, we have something called binding arbitration, which impacts the state and it impacts towns. It is undemocratic. Why? You elect your representatives to determine what your spending and taxing priorities are. But in fact, unelected officials will tell you at the end of the day what you're going to spend. That impacts your mill rate in your town. That impacts our spending by unelected officials. That must end. I'll give you another indication, 50 for 20. What is 50 for 20? 50 for 20 is 50 years of paying pension for 20 years of work. That is not good government. What that would translate into is for pensions from here on out be 401ks. James Madison in Federal 62 said, good government is comprised of 2 things. First, it is the happiness of the citizen that we work for. Not for a class of citizen, but for the citizen. And secondly, how best to achieve that. And that is how we must judge what we do. Is it for the happiness of the citizen? So I thank you very much, and I'm mindful of my time, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thalheim. Ms. Wyatt.
So leadership, what a great point and a great question to ask. When I started involved with who I am in creating this campaign, we had to brand ourselves. Came up with Governor Wyatt, the name. It worked. It made sense. And how to make sure you can leadership this through, I think there's 36 candidates in the system nowadays, and how we can leadership ourselves above that to how to market and make sure this name will help us get us to what we want to do, become the next governor. But we're in a crossroads. A lot of the people that are in Hartford are not running. This is going to be great to have a new person come in to put the fresh ideas, the new ideas that can change the way we're going to look at the new way of looking in Connecticut. We came up with our brand name as New Connecticut Future. That's what we're about. We want to look on how we're going to bring all of us, all the people in the state of Connecticut, to be part of this leadership on how we can change things. As I mentioned a minute ago, when I looked upon how we start this, I've never really been involved and wanted to be in politics, but I'm angered. And after seeing the last election, I realized I have a voice and I really need to get out there and make some change. I put myself out there. We get thousands of emails, not all positive. You have to face that and move on. And that's a part of that leadership, to not call people out, to not make fun. Listen to somebody else's opinion and offer how can we get and help us together to change and what we can do together. When I looked upon this again, when I looked about the point of how do we take leadership and change, I invited myself to send the emails to Hartford to meet with many of our House reps, our senators, Majority Leader Joe, our Democrat, and even famous, the Republican, in the hall of the Capitol, shook my hand and said, "Glad you're coming. Come and get involved." And that's where I realized that it doesn't matter what party I'm from. They're willing to look for somebody to come in and look for the greatness inside us, where we can help lead the state. You're gonna have to work with them. I also look upon this, making interviews with a lot of our representatives. I've been traveling the state and asking our representatives, what are you doing? Why you vote for this? Or what are we gonna do to move things forward? And there is a lot of people that are on this ballot next year that probably should not be running and coming back to Hartford. And those names are what you gotta look upon of who we are bringing back to our state. We have the power of the leadership to change what can get done. And when you look upon the people who we want to bring with us, the power of the veto is going to be great if we can get things done in the state of Connecticut. But now we're hearing is it's taking beyond points of how we can get things done. That's what's happening nowadays. The leadership seems to got stale. We're going to offer new leadership. That's where I come from, and that's where I am. If you ever looked at when we created our video on my entire campaign, it's a 30-minute video. Shows you my entire who I am, where I've come from, the leadership decisions I've made of all my businesses and decisions about me that made us look on how I moved myself to a brand new name of where I am here today. And I look at that nowadays, how would I take my strategy and how I'd make leadership work? I'm willing to work with Republicans. I'm not against them. I'm not against every Democrat in our group, because you've got to be able to work together. Somebody asked me once, how would I get the budget done on time more? You know, we have at the state capitol our state police, great people. We need more of them. When our senators and legislators come into that building, I would want them in my office, 10 minutes. Tell me what 10 things are in this budget that we can work together and how we're gonna fix it. And that's what needs to start now. The conversation's over. We need to start deciding the decisions quicker, and that's how we get done in the Capitol. It's reliable. We are responsible for you to put the budget on here, and we are not making those decisions, and they're going past due, and that's bad leadership in the state of Connecticut. But again, you have a governor that's the worst governor in the state of Connecticut. We're only going to get better.
Thank you, Ms. Wyatt. Mr. Mastroianni.
I'll be brief because I had touched on the subject before. As governor, you gotta hold those accountable for their actions of mismanagement. You have to put those in position of leadership that can handle the job and is qualified for that job. You have to elect judges to the bench that will uphold the law and the Constitution of the United States. Not for favoritism for anybody, but the law itself that it was made for. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Whitnum.
I'd like to make a comment to that statement that he just made, electing judges who uphold the law. This state is so filthy, the good ones can't stand it and leave. I cannot tell you how often I've been in a courtroom for a variety of reasons where my due process is violated. Who are you going to complain to? If you're treated completely unfairly in a court system, do you think you can complain to the appellate court? They only answer 20% of all appeals. When you're spending between $5,000 and $120,000 on an appeal, the last thing you want is to be one of the 75% that is picked up the briefs and thrown in the garbage. Why doesn't our appellate court answer everybody? I think every litigant is owed an explanation that's grounded in the law. Our system is so bad, and if you're one of the fortunate people who has not been in the crosshairs of the judicial system, whether through the custody of your kids, a bad divorce, or in probate, or, God forbid, DCF, our DCF is the worst. The biggest budget drains are the Department of Children and Families, which gets $800 million a year because we terrorize families. We use the law to terrorize. The judicial system, which is a huge drain, and the Department of Corrections, these are the three biggest drains in our budget. I will go in and micromanage them. I was a dragon lady, a management consultant for 15 years. I will go in and rip them to shreds. I will take every complaint retroactive for 15 years, and every child that was unnecessarily taken from family because some social worker wanted to justify their job will be fired. We need systems. He just said we need to vote for judges that abstain the law. How are you going to get rid of a bad judge? You suddenly have a system full of bad judges you can't get rid of because they're rubber stamped in every 8 years. You don't have the chance to get the good ones in because you can't get rid of the bad ones.
Thank you, Ms. Whitnum. Now I think we're going to move on to the next question. Question 2. According to the Yankee Institute's Markovich's January 24th piece, quote, only 65 cents of every tax dollar actually goes towards funding the Connecticut state's government. The rest goes towards supporting the legacy costs of massive debt, pension, and healthcare costs. What might you do to change this? Yes.
I won't sign a single agreement that has a pension in it. Now, I would protect everyone who has agreements because I honor contracts. So we do have to get, even though bloated, these people were promised, they made sacrifices. But the state government can't continue that way. And so this is now a condition of new hiring. You're young, you want to look to the state as your employer, that should be sufficient. And figure out, like the rest of us do, how to save for retirement. But in the process, I might be able to give state workers, new ones, actually a little more money in upfront pay. Upfront pay that they can control. They can decide, I'd like an extra $5,000 a year because my wife and I are starting a family. We'd like to get a mortgage. I'd like to get an extra $10,000 over 2 years because we want to put our kids in private school. Putting any worker, state or private, into more choice-oriented savings realms makes sense. And ladies and gentlemen, when we say, oh, we have to compromise, I'm not sure that we do. Okay? We become a state government that acts like a business. And most workers and businesses thrive. They shouldn't be afraid of that. What we should as a state be is afraid of pensions that are out of control now and could get even worse. Peter, you talked about legacy maybe being 50 years. We can't control somebody's life longevity. We can't control the cost of living. but we can control what we pay our department leaders now. Thanks.
Mr. Smith?
You know, the assumption in your question is that people who have earned a pension are overpaid and don't deserve it. And therefore, the government of the state needs to change it and take it away and remove it. Yet these are promises that the state made to teachers or somebody that drives a snowplow or somebody that works in a correctional institution. They work hard and they make this state work. We have the most educated workforce of any state in the United States. Maybe teachers get a little credit for that. It is the wealthiest state in the United States. Yes, we have fiscal issues and fiscal problems, but tearing down government, which many of my competitors for the candidacy want to do, is not the solution. It's not the solution. The solution is that we need to expand the economic opportunity. We need more voc-tech schools in addition to this kind of a school. We need to continue to train people for jobs that are available right now in Connecticut and that will be available in the future. This is what I meant a little while ago when I said we need to have government that thinks about today, not yesterday. We have to think about today and tomorrow. We have to think about what are you going to do when your children are in this school? Are you going to have a good job? Can you support it? We have to create a government that does these sorts of things. We have to compromise. Compromise is what built this country. Everybody know why our capital is in Washington, D.C.? It was from compromise. I'm out of time. I'll come back and tell the story.
Mr. Thalheim?
Thalheim, yes. I mentioned before about good government. And we are, in fact, in a constitutional crisis because with tax increases, we lose more population. When we lose people who make money to have money, we cannot even pay our bills. So, not to denigrate the kind and well-meaning employees of the state, but I come back again to Article 1, Section 2. Our government, our Constitution was created for the benefit of the citizen. Now, we have young people down front. We have $100 billion of unfunded pension obligations hanging around our throat. We have an annual budget of approximately $21 billion. We cannot afford the $100 billion, all right? These are bad deals made in the past. Now, if I were a state employee and you told me that if I did overtime for 2 or 3 years, I could boost my pension for 30 years, I would do that. You know what? Not only are you going to pay me for my overtime, you're going to boost my pension for 30 years. You know what? That sounds like a deal too good to be true. And what did your parents tell you about a deal that's too good to be true? So, mistakes made in the past, which is not good government, are now laid at the feet of the young people. And the young people, will this millstone of $100 billion be put around your neck? Will you in fact stay in the state when these bad deals that were not for the benefit of the citizen, but were for a special class? Will you stay? Mr. Smith said, where were your children? You may not even be here. That is a sad thing. You go to your parents and say, I have a job offer in Arizona, I got one in Florida, I got one in Connecticut, where should I go? You know what? Unfortunately, your parents might say, go to the other place, because people are voting with their feet. If there's more freedom and liberty in another state, why are we going to stay here? So good government is for the happiness of the citizen. And I think Democrats should say whether or not they're going to burden our young people with $100 billion in unfunded pension liabilities. That's the question I put to them. Because our sovereign immunity protects us from having to pay all that. Our Constitution is not a suicide pact. We do have control of our budget. We can decide with the legislature and the governor to vote money for schools, for roads, for social safety net, for parks and recreation, and for unfunded pension obligations. That is what we can do year in and year out. We are not bound to the millstone of these unfunded pension obligations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Wyatt.
Be clear, this Democrat is not going to make the state of Connecticut be in the situation where we are. So if our state workers are what is my first priority on my platform, on my website, we need to stand with our state workers. We need to also hire more cops and first responders, as I said, state police. This is their situation of getting a job in this state is impossible. The jobs aren't here. And that's what's making this $5 billion that the state is now spending to fund our 169 towns and cities. We have not looked upon how we're going to step up and be the leadership to say, can the towns support themselves? They're not. We never let the economic development engine happen in a lot of towns that can supply the chain of how the states all work, all the towns work in the state. So we stand strong on knowing that we also have to help our fellow citizens in all the towns. So if our state can't get the financials together to realize that we need money, but you just don't come up and taxing everybody and how to do it. We looked at our economic plan and how we can take many taxes away in the state because of the revenue engines that can come by asking our CEOs in the state, by asking private developments to reinvest in the state, to bring that money that we need to supply what we're not doing. Let's talk about the pensions. How embarrassing would you look at a spreadsheet and be a CEO of a company and see this huge overwhelming debt with no revenue? Amazon couldn't work like that. You can't work on the state, we're operating like a business, but we also have to look upon, if this is what we've done for years, it's time for the generation to step up and stop it and fix it. We need to make money. And it's not by taxing the people. There's money that can be brought to the state of Connecticut. It's sitting here, the wealth is here to reinvest, but they want to trust and believe the people in Hartford are doing the right decisions that will make their investments be strong and bring the state farther ahead in the state.
Thank you, Ms. Wyatt.
Look, people looked upon pensions very differently in the past. My father worked for the same bank for 40 years. They had pensions. Our state was competitive with other states. It was a different world. As I mentioned before, the unfunded pensions and the pensions, people die off. That is something that is going to change in the future. I want to address sovereign immunity because Mr. Thalheim talked about sovereign immunity in reference to individuals. Sovereign immunity is what the judges have. Let me give you an example. In 1912, Arizona wanted to become a state. The judges from Connecticut said, oh, you got to take out that fire judges out of your clause of your Constitution if you want to become a member of the United States of America. And the legislature in Arizona said, okay, what do you mean? Well, in Connecticut, our judges have sovereign immunity. They can't be arrested, nothing can happen to them. We need you to continue the tradition, which was descended from the king, of sovereign immunity. And so Arizona said, sure, we'll take it out. They took it out, the ability to fire judges. As soon as they became a state, they put it right back in. As a matter of fact, many of the states following the Missouri model, which are west of the state of Missouri, are more civilized. There's ways to get rid of corrupt, incompetent, those on the take, the sadistic. You only can't do it here. And then we extended sovereign immunity. Individuals don't have sovereign immunity, sir. Judges have sovereign immunity, and then state employees have quasi-judicial immunity, and all these branches of immunity. Did you know you can't sue the state of Connecticut or a member of a state employee, that you have to get permission from the Claims Commission? They have sovereign immunity. That's got to change. We need to be able to fire bad judges and bad state employees. And I want to say one more thing. When you're in the shower tomorrow, this is your assignment, because I'm on the stage with some of these people almost every other day these days. You have to think, what did he say? What did she say? If you can't remember what they say, or any candidate says, that means they stand for nothing. If you said that Lee Whitnum It's going to clean up the judiciary and fire state employees and streamline the system. That is a good thing, because you want somebody who has 15 bills already written to clean up the system. I'm ready to hit the ground running, even if I don't look like your traditional governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitnum. I think we'll be moving on to the next question.
So we'll move on. In light of the horrific events 2 weeks ago in Florida, what can the state of Connecticut do to ensure the safety of all of its students and staff? Ms. Wyatt?
The gun issue. I had a lot of conversations recently with family, friends, people I met, and asked them, if teacher, would you really want to have a gun? Are you willing to kill? And I looked upon this as, how are we going to do this? I'm from a construction background, by the way, and so I'm an interior designer, and I know how we can build buildings like these stronger and better. The teachers aren't the solution, too. We haven't heard the principal being the person that needs to be in charge of actually holding a weapon. But bringing the weapons inside this school is the thing we don't want to do. We want this building to be built safe enough that we could put Margard plastic on the windows, made by GE. No bullet could get through it. It's used in our Amtrak trains. That is a way to making constructional points start working for our safety of our students, our employees, visitors that are in these buildings that have a new life. I went to school, we were worried about when we went home to watch One Life to Live. Now we're on a point where we're looking about if our kids are coming home and if they actually have access through these cell phones that everyone has, and what are they doing, and what are they planning, or what is not being done. And I'm actually at my time, but I think on the gun situation nowadays, it's terrible. We don't need to look upon getting any check from the NRA to run for office. We need to stand up against it, and we also need to look upon the rights of supporting Second Amendment rights. But the AR-15 should not be in the hands of anybody in this country except inside the military.
Thank you. Just so that all candidates are aware, if any timing wasn't unclear, we're going to grant some candidates 2 extra minutes. Mr. Mastroianni?
I think everyone.
Everybody?
There was a time of 2 extra minutes for.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Well, I just think you might be able to hear about the time.
I'm very confused. I think 0, does that mean I'm done? Okay. Everybody gets it. Okay. All right. On the same question.
This was my proposal. I think it caught some people by surprise. So take 2. We'll all take 2 more.
Can I just take 2 more then? Okay. So back to this, and bringing about the construction. I walked inside when we walked in here, the security of exits. There's no concrete barriers in front of our doors. So it's not a gun this time. What if it was a bomb or a car in other situations? At the same time as this building today is part of where we want to keep people safe and learning. So if this situation is today that we need to look upon how we're going to make solutions, we have to be compromising on both sides. I see today that this gun issue is going to need to be issued. We're done, we're tired. It seems like today in society, we need to stand up and say we had enough is enough. And the students are going to do it because they have the voice that they're not care. They're fearless. They're willing to make sure that people are heard. This people that are voting for each other and wanting to make sure we're doing it for our buddy. No, its time is up. It's time to move on and realize the gun situation has came to a point that it just doesn't work where our forefathers wrote in our Constitution. And I see today that building these buildings stronger is a great thing, but again, you gotta realize, I see both sides. There's people that want their guns. I am not coming to take away the support of what we're supposed to have. We need to do this with you. One quick question on one more point. I'm running in the last year, I'm the first person that I called Scott Wilson at the CTL here in Connecticut, and he told me he's never been called by any Democrat in 20 years. I wanted to hear what he's thinking in this state of Connecticut, what we can do to solution problems. You gotta listen to the sides, but we also gotta make harsh decisions. And I said today, Tix is now banning the AR-15 from their stores at 21-year-old. Great. Corporate America finally stood up and said, we're done. The numbers don't work on our balance sheets. But guess what? we also have to solution how this isn't made fun of at the same time that someone's standing up and doing it right.
Thank you, Ms. Wyatt. Now, Mr. Mastroianni.
This is about the safety of children in schools, correct?
Yes, it is.
And guns. Well, as you know, I told you I'm a soldier. And I'm going to make a comment on what Mr. Smith said about making you Navy SEALs. Navy Seabees, for those who were in the military, were right up there with the hardest training, right there with the Navy SEALs. Most of you in this room will never make the grade that I made and earn that uniform that I wore, right next to my fellow brother, Navy SEALs. Now, guns. Teachers should be in school to teach. That's your job. Now, I'm going to say also that there is so many out-of-work veterans that we should train them again, put them in plain clothes, and let them be unseen as we are in the jungles against our enemies to protect these schools. But we have to be careful who we let into our state and why. Also, we must do a background check on who's buying these guns. I'm going to touch on a subject that is, I'm a father of 4. Sandy Hook was such a tragedy, and it really is. I have a 21-year-old soon to be, at 18 next month, a daughter who's going to be 16 in December, and a little sweet daughter who's going to be 4 in November. They're my world. But if someone came into my gun shop, and if I was a gun owner, and I'm not, men, women, forgive me if it seemed that way what I'm about to say. If an older woman comes into my shop and wants to buy 4 Bushmasters, a couple of shotguns, and a load of handguns, it's her right, constitutional right, to purchase a weapon, but I would persuade her, try to find out why she wants such an arsenal. Those clerks have to be more on guard on what they're letting out of that shop and why. I don't want to infringe on the Second Amendment because in history, and I'm 45, a lot of you are older than me and I respect my elders. If you look in history, when they took the guns from the citizens, a minimum of 2 million citizens in each incident was massacred. It's fact, it's history. We have to do more training on being responsible gun owners. I blame the parents when a child gets a hold of that gun and does the unspeakable, or to themselves. But it's all about training. But for the safety of schools, we have to do more to protect our children. We really do. But you hear it today. Make it so none of us can hold a gun. It's the biggest mistake this country will ever make. But we must protect the most precious right here, these children. They're what it's all about.
Thank you, Mr. Mastroianni. Mr. Stewart.
Eric is talented enough to strangle somebody with his bare hands. Others in this very building are capable, if they're that wayward, to stab people with kitchen knives that are found in this cafeteria. The best defense that people have is still a gun. A good guy with a gun. A trained person that may not be a teacher. It should be up to the school districts, and once again, I think it should be a matter of choice of the schools. how we're going to protect the kids, what risks we might be willing to take in the name of freedom. My campaign, which is called Stewart for Liberty, is about freedom because freedom is almost certainly better for safety, for economics, and for our wholesomeness as people.
Thank you. Mr. Mastroianni, I have one more thing to add.
The point I'm trying to make, and I hear about the gun laws, we want more gun laws. We want to make more gun laws. I admit, and you will probably agree with me in this next statement, criminals do not obey laws at all. All you're doing is tightening the hands of the law-abiding citizen to defend their family and everybody else. I do not have a weapon on me. It's not a weapon, it's a gun. But I do carry. I'm licensed to carry. I also do security for my CEO. I'm right there where everyone's come and goes. And at a moment's notice, I am bonded to react swiftly, professionally, as I can. But, like I'm going to end with what I said before. No matter what kind of laws you want to make, or more and more, we have to enforce the ones that are on the books. Be sensible about it, but criminals, no way, no shape, no form, will ever obey a law. That's why they're criminals.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
You heard my view on guns and teachers. I think it's lunacy. But let me say this. As I said at the beginning, I'm a Democrat. I'm running for governor. I believe in traditional Democrat values. Reproductive rights for women. Equal pay for women. Thoughtful gun laws that keep assault weapons out of society. I believe in gender rights. I believe in climate change. I believe that we should not put oil wells in Long Island Sound. We have to enter the advanced world. People in Washington that like it, the EPA, they don't believe in climate change. They're trying to stop it. What is the matter with these people? We have to do better. I will be a leader that will do things differently and better. We have to have leaders that are thoughtful, that can look at science and base decisions based on science. They're not doing that. Do you know 21% of Connecticut's Environmental Protection Organization, the DEEP, comes from the federal EPA. And yet the Trump people have gutted the budget. And one last thing. Think about your electric bill that you got from Eversource last month. Okay? When you guys go home, ask your parents to show you the electric bill. Eversource is a publicly traded company on Wall Street. They're not headquartered in Connecticut, and they're not beholden to anybody but Wall Street. They just got a 14% tax cut from the Trump Republicans. I have called for you to get a 14% rate cut. It's a utility. When I'm governor, we're going to look at things like that because it matters. One last thing, and I'll sit down. Think about that 62-year-old grandmother. She looks after her grandson in the afternoon so her daughter can work the second job that she needs to do to keep the three of them above water. She pays $300 a month in electric bill on the two-bedroom apartment they have because it leaks and it costs a lot. That's about $40 to $43 a month times 12 is 2 car payments or enough for books and clothes for that grandchild for the whole year. It isn't for Wall Street. It needs to be for that 62-year-old grandmother and the grandson. Vote for Guy Smith. We will lead this state into the future together.
Thank you, sir.
Real fast.
Just wanted to say one thing.
I've been hearing about some of these laws too that they want to pass, that they are against veterans for having guns. I just like to say, when something happens, we're the ones that you want next to you when it goes down. Because when everyone else will be running from the situation, we're the ones without question, thinking, we're the ones that's going to run to the situation to even lay our life down for our young people and every single person in this room if it ever was to happen at this moment. We're the ones that you want to have the guns with.
Thank you, sir.
When I said also to the military should be done when they are 50, and believe me, I would want, I'm going to be running for governor, and I chose a job that I'm going to have to wear a bulletproof vest to work. And my point in life is if an A-15 rifle needs to be in the hands of a hunter to kill a deer, it's the wrong message. But I do want an A-15 in the hands of a military person, a cop that is going to run inside to help protect the situation that got out of control. But that's one thing for me is I understand there's going to be people that want no touching of one specific gun. I think that's where we as a country can look upon. There's not a slippery slope. Just have to start to do something that doesn't look upon slaughtering the masses of people and children.
Thank you.
Ma'am,
Ms.
why not just have surveillance? People can't walk into the building unless they go through a gauntlet of a metal detector, and where they're looked over, you know, if it's not a regular dismissal, so just some simple security methods like they do in the inner city schools. Notice that all the schools where the massacres occur are usually in the suburbs. They don't have the usual security. But if you go into any school in the Bronx, they've got metal detectors. They've had them for decades. We just need to have more security, more surveillance. When a kid walks in with a thing that holds a musical instrument, you open it up and you show that there's not a rifle in there, etc. Some simple security could solve this in a lot of cases.
Thank you. Now we'll move to Mr. Thalheim.
Yes, Ms. Oletta, you asked about rules in the Parkland massacre. I'd like to touch on rules. As you know, there were rules. We're told it ought to be a law. I've heard that. Ought to be a law. Well, there were rules that told the FBI and the police that if you heard of a credible threat of a person that was unstable, was threatening the school, that you should follow up. Well, they can't catch everything, but there was a rule, and it failed. There's also rules or laws that there could be an armed guard at the school, and that failed. So it is hard to put our faith as young people, there ought to be a law that's going to protect you. Yes, bump stocks, I don't see any points to them. They make a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon. Better background checks, clearly. But on rules, I'd like you young people to ask yourselves, what rules do you follow? Well, the rules you follow, certainly if you drive a car, you follow the speed limit. You follow about parking. But the rule that you follow, because we don't know all the rules, is the golden rule. Do unto others as you wish to be done unto you. And that is what you follow. That is a moral that you have. Where did it come from? Well, it came from society. And my gratitude is about life, valuing life. And do we teach that enough in our schools, to value each other's life? And our common humanity is about loving our brothers and sisters, and that is to be taught. When I hear that at Parkland, the football team may not say a prayer before a game, this is not the criticism from the left where it says our thoughts and prayers after a massacre. This has to do with prayer, of valuing our life, valuing your life. So are we teaching enough morality to our young people? Why are they so lost to think that they can take life like they're taking wheat? So that's a question that goes beyond law. But I'd like to give you a positive thought. As a young person saying, how can this be? I go to school with my friends and my teachers. I was in Paris November 13, 2015, when the Islamic terrorists killed people in the Bataclan nightclub, people having a good time. Our hotel room was 3 blocks from where they killed people in the cafes. I was also, 9/11 is not my experience, but I did watch for days as the smoke billowed from where the Twin Towers had been. But Rudolph Giuliani, the mayor of New York City, said, do not let these people adjust the way you're going to live your life. It is your life. If you adjust the way you live, they win. So I encourage you not to let this dim your wishes, your dreams, or how you conduct yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other candidates that wish to speak on this? No. All right. All right, next question. So with all due respect, none of you on the stage are household names per se. So what impediments must you confront to get your party's nomination or gain ballot access? Further, would you suggest changes to the nomination process and electoral reform? And where do you stand regarding campaign finance reform? Oh yeah, my bad. So with all due respect, none of you on the stage are necessarily household names. So what impediments must you confront to get your party's nomination or gain ballot access? Would you suggest change to the nomination process and electoral reform? And where do you stand regarding campaign finance reform and fair elections? Yes, Ms. Whitnum.
Did you know that most governors that are elected are tall, lean, white guys with good hair? People have an idea of what a governor looks like. When I was at Harvard Graduate School of Education, I cross-registered to the Harvard Business School. We saw this videotape, and there were 2 CEOs, and one guy looked like the quintessential CEO, and the other guy was kind of, overweight, and he was bald, and he would sing in the hallways of his company, and he would cook food and bring food around to the employees, and everybody at Harvard Business School was rolling their eyes like, oh my God, he's ridiculous. And then the professor said, okay, so who's a better CEO? Oh, hands down, 95% said the guy who looked the part, the 1-minute manager, very abrupt. And then we developed a criterion, and we looked at the same videotape again. And examining the criterion, we all determined at the end of it that the person who was the best person for the job wasn't who we originally thought. Getting people, when you talk about the hurdles to have to overcome, you have to overcome all these hurdles of what you look like and your gender. And the additional hurdle I have to overcome is the fact that I was arrested for something I didn't do, that I've been smeared in the press and fighting with the Hearst Media Corporation to please, don't take anything off if it's accurate, but can you please take off the stuff that's lies? The governor said that he had a protective order against me. He never had a protective order because I don't know the man. The fact that the paper printed it and others regurgitated. There is nothing worse. There is nothing worse than to read lies about yourself in the paper. You call up Hearst Media. I'm having a fight with the CEO. You went to Harvard, I went to Harvard. We're the same age. You're a big shot. I'm a nobody. But it's my little life. Can we take these lies off? It's an ongoing battle. Threats of lawsuits. I can't clean up my name. I can't get the truth out. That's my biggest hurdle.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart?
Ballot access was new to me as of 2 years ago when I decided I wanted to help Gary Johnson. He needed to get 7,500 signatures of Connecticut voters to be listed on the ballot against Clinton and Trump. And I think it's actually quite fair, because the Democrats and the Republicans right now deserve majority party status. They've earned it. I'm campaigning within the Democrat Party. That's where the action is. I doubt they'll keep me. They'll probably take somebody more progressive than me. And you will still see me on the ballot because I am working to get on the ballot with my own 7,500 signatures. It kind of looks like this. I have to carry this in parking lots. You guys can sign if you want afterwards. I've got one for every town. Clinton's on top, Killingworth's next. You can participate in one of the better ways. The libertarians, which are on the outs right now, they rail against this ballot access. They're saying it's condemned by, or it's being condemned because the big parties want to stay in power. Well, they do. And the right move is for smaller parties to step up seriously. And if they can't win your vote, they don't deserve to be major parties yet. I hope that I will be a candidate for both the Democrats and the Amigo Party. It stands for Americans for Minimal Government, Amigo.